This show is sponsored by Sevi, answering all your commercial real estate needs. Sevi is the first commercial real estate company committed to the 4 C's: commercial real estate, community, content, and culture. Go visit Sevi at Sevi, SEVI, properties.com. Again, SeviProperties.com. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the DMV Business Show. I'm your host, Otto Sevilla, and today I have a very special guest for you. We have Dr. Christopher Good. Dr. Good is the president, CEO, and spine surgeon at VSI. VSI stands for Virginia Spine Institute. Welcome to the show, Dr. Good.
Thank you so much for having me. It really is a pleasure.
Of course, the pleasure is all mine. Before we go into your personal and business journey, I'd like the audience to get to know the business first, just in case they haven't heard of it. And plus, behind you, VSI is everywhere. So they're like, what's VSI? What do they do?
Absolutely. So VSI, previously Virginia Spine Institute, is a multidisciplinary medical practice hubbed in Reston, Virginia. So we've been here over 30 years. Initially started really focused on spine problems and mainly spinal surgical solutions for people. But as we've evolved, first to a really high level physical therapy, rehabilitation, exercise, non-operative care, that's been our path over time. And so one of our strengths has always been trying to get experts together, really under one roof, working together for patients. So instead of like, oh, I go see someone over here and they refer me over there and nobody's talking, like everybody's together. And as things have evolved over time, especially on some of our non-operative treatments, we started doing really amazing things like what we call regenerative medicine, stem cell type of treatments is what the lay public calls it. You know, if you get really great at that in orthopedics or in spine, well, next thing you know, you're doing some hips, some knees, some shoulders. And if you're doing a lot of spine care, you're doing neurology. And so as we've grown, we've actually outgrown just the word spine because we do so many other things. And also we've really gotten to the point where not only are obviously our DMV patients are our tried and true, but as this has become more of a destination practice internationally and around the country, Virginia has become a little bit less than what we are. And so we've decided to go to VSI, which can really help for patients who are coming to us to really kind of understand kind of the multifactorial nature of the practice and what we're all about.
That's nice. That's great to hear. You mentioned stem cell, and I'm not familiar, of course, but I was just seeing a video recently. A lot of people are going out of the country. I don't know if you've seen that, or can they do some of the procedure here or some of that? Or no?
Yeah, so there's a huge, it's almost like, you know, the Wild West in some ways with stem cells. And
Okay.
in the US, with any new medical technology, we are always protected by, but constrained by regulation, particularly the FDA, right? In some ways that needs to be there. And in some ways, you know, it slows us down. Now, if you look at regenerative medicine, basically, if you think about it, you have an injury in your body. Let's say you tear a ligament. Well, hopefully you have bleeding into that area. Your body goes through a scarring process. And over time, your body heals. And if we're lucky, we're as good as new, right? But sometimes we don't heal all the way. Sometimes things wear out over time. And so using regenerative medicine is trying to take growth factors or natural substances in the body that are involved in this healing process. And let's say introduce them into an area that's not doing well to almost like introduce another healing response, right? So I've had a number of these in my own body, so I'm an expert. My first injury was a tear to one of the ligaments in my knee, and it never healed. And I had pain, right? I could work, but, you know, it was really wearing on me over the years. And I was going to go to one of my good friends, an orthopedist, and he was going to go in and cut the ligament and sew it up. And luckily, my partner, Nitish Barara, who's our director of regenerative medicine, did a treatment called PRP, which is where he took blood from my arm, spun it in a centrifuge to concentrate the growth factors, and he injected it into the ligament where it was torn. He used an ultrasound to identify it. And believe it or not, over time, that caused a secondary healing response. So after years of pain, the pain went away, and I've been perfect since 2016. No surgery.
Wow.
And so it's a really tremendously promising thing for the future. Now, It all depends on getting the right substance in the right area and the right person. So there's a lot of expertise required. And I will say, there are a lot of things when people hear stem cells that could get into a lot of ethical questions and concerns, right? Where are
Okay.
stem cells coming from, or what's happening to these stem cells? If we take cells and we do something to them, could they turn into cancer, right? There's a lot of these very important questions. And so what we're doing is scientifically pretty simple, right? We're taking something from your body, blood or bone marrow, and all we're doing is concentrating it and putting it where there's an injury. So we're not stimulating it. We're not doing these things that are currently not allowed by the FDA. I do think that further progress in this is going to be the future of a lot of what we're doing in orthopedics. But for right now, we're able to do, very safe procedures with a lot of promise for people. Now, there are things being done in other countries, some of which I think are really promising, some of which I question. And so it is really important whenever we get into this regenerative medicine discussion to just be really honest. We need data, we need studies, we need research, because it is true. There's some things being done that I couldn't stand behind or feel good or advocate for. And as somebody who's had it in my own body with success and uses it for patients, I want to make sure we're getting the right story out in that, so that the people who it really can be helpful for, get that opportunity.
No, that's a great example. And I can't remember. It was just some athlete that I follow, and I saw. I think he went to somewhere to practice in Mexico, and then he was saying how it's helped his shoulder. I think that was an injury. I think it was a UFC fighter, if I remember correctly. And I was like, wow, okay, because sometimes I have shoulder pain. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm not a fighter though, but that's a different thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously a UFC fight. I mean, I don't know if you remember, Kobe Bryant went over and got his PRP, and that was like a big deal a few years ago when that happened. And like, it was initially like this thing the elite athletes did. Well, the reality is a lot of that great care is available right here in the US, right? And available for regular folks like us, not just for the elite athletes. And I think more and more and more for things like partial tears, rotator cuff problems, certain lumbar disc issues. I mean, I personally have had it in my shoulders and my wrist and in my knee, and I've had tremendous success with every one. I've not required surgery. I'm still going strong, exercising, and it's awesome, right? And if we can use these types of treatments to get a natural healing response and avoid or delay surgeries or more perhaps concerning medicines with side effects, it's an exciting area for the future. I really think if you think of medicine, if you think of like this crazy world of gene therapy, and I think if you look at regenerative medicine and the next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, it's some really exciting stuff for the future.
That's great. You were just mentioning how you're bringing basically everything in-house. Are you doing all this from your Virginia location?
Yeah, so right now we're in Reston, Virginia, and so this was planned many years ago by our founder. But the reality is, we've got three, international airports. We have hospital, we have procedure areas, we have hotels. So we have a really great situation for patients from all around the DMV to come, but also people who are flying.
Hmm.
And what we are doing, I think we're trying to do things in a very unique way. So we want to offer this to as many people as possible and expand our reach, but it's not something where we just think this should be kind of a franchise thing that's all over the place, right? We're really trying to maintain a very high level of customer service. And I don't really love the term, but people say concierge medicine these days, and
Hmm.
they think of their primary care doc a lot. But really, for people who are looking at this situation and saying, hey, I really want a lot of attention. I want cutting edge. I want a really patient focused treatment. I want maybe some of my treatments to be done maybe independently, more with me and my doctor, and a little bit less with a hospital administrator or an insurance company making all the decisions. That's a place where we can really step in and offer those kind of things to people.
That's great. Yeah, it is. It is great that we have three international airports. That way, people could just come and see you and come to Virginia and get all better.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and if you think about it, when we started 34 years ago, if I look out the window now at what Northern Virginia is and what it was then, there was quite a bit of foresight to be in this location, because it has really just grown up tremendously. If you look at the counties around us and the type of people and the type of industry, I mean, it's obviously a wonderful area.
Dr. Good, when we started, we already went into the practice and the business and everything, but if we could just rewind a little bit. Are you originally from this area here, the DMV?
No, not at all. Actually, so I was born in a little town in Colorado called Estes Park. It's like in the Rocky Mountain National Park. So I was your like a mountain kid, right? And the reason I went into the field of spine, actually, my dad was a manager of a ski area, and he fell out of a chairlift when I was 10 days old, and he fell and he landed and crushed a bunch of vertebrae in his back. And this was the 70s. They really did not have good options, so he had a surgery. It did not work out well. He had just one complication or problem after another, ultimately passing away when I was in sixth grade. And so I grew up like watching and always, this was my life. And I had a wonderful childhood, but like this was always there. And so that's what drove me to go into being a spine surgeon and enter the area. And so I was focused on the best treatment. So I went wherever I could get the best academic job. And I met my wife. She was at Cornell in her training while I was at the Hospital for Special Surgery in Manhattan. And she's a New Yorker. And so small town in Colorado, for me, she's from Brooklyn. When we started looking at an area where we could live and be happy, Northern Virginia was just kind of a perfect blend of, city, rural, the right kind of people around us. Were close to her family, but not too close. And so that's really how it all came together. And then when I started looking for kind of the right kind of practice for me, because I talk with patients a lot. I do not move fast in my clinic visits. I can't see 60 patients a day and do a good job. And so when I started looking, luckily I found Dr. Schuler. I found the Virginia Spine Institute in this unique practice. And so it's been kind of a match made in heaven ever since then.
Wow, that's great. So growing up, seeing your dad in pain and agony, that was to step that open your eyes and like, oh, I need to I want to go into medicine.
Oh yeah. And we weren't medical in my family. My family's teachers and, blue collar. And I'm going to be a doctor, right? And they're like, okay, and I remember applying for med school and I'm like, I'm going to be a complex spine surgeon. And they're all like, okay, kid, like you're a freshman in college, right? But it was meant to be, because literally at every path along the way, there are different classes where they weed people out, or there was an opportunity. I was lucky enough to get into an early acceptance program to med school after my sophomore year of college. It was just predestined. Every time, and I would work with the orthopedist, and I would have a great experience. I got wonderful mentors along the way, and so I literally went full speed ahead, straight through, and ended up in the field.
Dr. Good, when you met your wife in New York, I know you settled in Virginia, but did you have any friends and family in this area or not at all?
So interestingly, my cousin was from Colorado, but he was here. He played for the Redskins. His name was Reed Dowdy. He played strong safety for the Redskins, and he was actually on the team and was Sean Taylor's backup actually when Sean Taylor was killed and all that. And so we did have them in the area, but moving here was really more a function of being close enough to my wife's family in New York, but really the right environment, the right practice for us. And so it was nice to have that bond with the Redskins when we got here, obviously, and with my cousin, but it was really it was the right area and the right job.
So you've been with VSI now for how long?
16 years.
Okay.
So I joined right, you do a fellowship, and I did a fellowship in complex spine surgery and like scoliosis surgery. And I joined right out of that. And in my first years of my practice, I did a lot of like really challenging big surgeries, a lot of things that I think most spine surgeons really don't want to do. Very, very hard work, very delicate, challenging patients, to help get through without troubles. But that was really great for me because I worked really hard. But if you're a young surgeon who does a lot of really complex work, you build your skills very, 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 very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was kind of the foundation of my career and building my practice.
And now with you being president and CEO, I'm sure that's a very different skill set compared to a surgeon, right?
Yeah, I will say, there was zero business education going through medicine. Very few people did MBAs. Um, I definitely am a surgeon first, and so that's definitely one of the things I joke about, right? Like I'm CEO starting when I finish in the OR and all weekend, right? And so having, a culture, a wonderful group of, 100 people who we need to take care of, and all these patients that are not just my patients, but my practice's patients. That is definitely something I'm really excited about, having moved more and more into that role. But that's kind of how I see, hopefully what might be the middle chapter for me is not just taking care of patients, although that's what I'm about. It's my number one focus in life, but really, building this organization and preserving it for the future, and, protecting our employees, and being able to really, I think we do something really, really special, being able to preserve that for people, because obviously the healthcare system is changing, economics are changing. And so being an independent practice is used to be really, really common, and that's less and less of a thing as hospital systems and insurance companies have kind of taken over all aspects of the medical system.
I'm actually glad you brought that up, Doctor Good, because I do see that nowadays a lot of medical practices or even dental practices, just healthcare in general, or these private equity groups are coming in and just buying them out, or other groups. So I assume you don't foresee that in the near future with VSI?
Well, certainly not the plan.
Okay.
But I want to do whatever is best. And if you look at what this organization has, of how it's evolved over 30 years, we have to be able to turn on a dime. We have to be able to stay with and ahead of the times, right? I think, I don't want to be very careful, like certainly nothing negative to say about many of my friends who are in that field. But, when we look at the old model, right? You had this doctor, you had the patient, they were deciding what they wanted to do, and they didn't have to ask for permission. And a lot of times doctors made kind of bad business decisions because of what they thought was right for a patient, right? And as we look at business people running practices and healthcare systems and trying to look at massive numbers and thinking about it from more business perspective, I think that's necessary. But it's unique because we still have to maintain, this is about the patient. How do we achieve those goals? But it's not like we can just look at healthcare as a product that is, got a skew, and we're just trying to say, stock this on the shelves, oh, this one's selling more than that one, move it around. Like doctors, it's much more complicated than that when you really get down to it, right? And I think having doctors involved in that process is not as common. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but I think it's critical, right? Because they really are the foundation, right? They're the ones doing the training, taking the Hippocratic oath, being there in front of the patients. And we need to make sure that continues as we're looking at how our healthcare system works. And there's a lot of pressures, and we need different parts of our system, right? Like some patients really need very elite, high level focused care. Sometimes we just need things that are quick and convenient, and we can take care of as many people for something simple, as cheap as possible, right? So, there's not a one size fits all here, but you need the doctors involved, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I see many doctors that, their whole career, they just stay as doctors. And some eventually end up having their own practice. Some like you end up president, CEO. Did you always have an idea that you wanted to ascend maybe to CEO one day, or have your own practice, or oversee one, or did that just come about?
Yeah. So when I made the decision, right, you can go into like a university setting, and that's about like publishing and moving up the academic ladder. Whereas if you go into a practice like mine, it doesn't have kind of that same like chairman position at the top, right? So CEO is kind of the academic chairman role. I always foresaw that this was something in my future. I do feel like I am good at identifying with people. I feel like I have a good skill set when it comes to motivation and leadership and those kind of decisions. And so for sure. And then, once I came here and started, obviously working with Dr. Schuler, my mentor, who was our founder, and saw what he had done, and, started working hand in hand with him over the years to help bring VSI along. That obviously became, my goal, and I've worked for that for a long, long time.
Yeah, that's great. I'm just thinking about my wife. She's had lower back pain. Gosh, from what I think we were in a Caribbean trip one time and she was in a jet ski and then it bumped. And since then, it's just one thing. She's gone to different doctors, chiropractors, therapists, and it's still there. And I'm sure depending on your pain, you would probably advise different things to different patients, right? But what can someone do when they're having back pain?
So one thing I think, back pain for lots of medical doctors is like a black box, right? It's like the most common reason that people miss work. It's one of the largest costs of people being out on disability. And so you see it day in, day out. But at the end of the day, you look at that back and you're like, ugh, like it hurts, right? And I got my anti-inflammatories, and for a lot of, and the reality is, if you look at it, 85% of us are going to have meaningful back pain at least some point in our lives. Now, thankfully, many people, it's a flare up and not a chronic thing, but all these people are dealing with it. And to really get to the bottom of it, if it's turning into a long-standing thing, you really have to open up that black box and start to put the pieces of the puzzle together, understand what are the structures in there, which ones are actually hurting, which ones may have degeneration or wear and tear or injury. And if you look at it, there's only about 1 million different things you can do in terms of therapy and exercise, right? And so there's a lot of ways to come about that. And so if you're having these kind of troubles, I would say don't give up, right? There's lots of different things to try. And you really need to find someone who's able to say, okay, where are we hurting? We need a detailed examination. We need studies. We need to look at the pictures, and we need to start trying to really get to the root cause of the structure. And like, if somebody has a disc in their back that is injured, or a broken tailbone from a jet ski or whatever, yes, it causes back pain, but we really need to get to the bottom of it and say, okay, which piece is broken, which piece is injured, which piece is weak. And if we can focus the treatment there, we're able to make great progress for most people.
Mm-hmm. That's great. I was looking at content online as far as what's the best way to sleep for your back. And people are saying flat, then on the side. Any recommendations there?
Well, I think there's a difference between, if you feel fine, how should you sleep to avoid injury, versus if you're having pain, how should you sleep, right? I think that the reality is, if you look at most back problems, the way people sleep is a very, very minor part of why they may or may not have back problems, right? If you look at many of us, it comes down to genetics, what we've inherited from our parents. It comes down to a little bit of luck, sadly. And then it comes down to wear and tear, right? And as time goes on, structures in our body will start to age, right? We get wrinkles, our skin gets tighter, we get a little bit of arthritis, our muscles tighten. I mean, that's normal. The way you take care of yourself, in terms of your choice about smoking, which is probably the worst thing that we can do for our backs, but how much weight we carry around, how well we strengthen the muscles of our back, all these choices that we're making factor into this wear and tear factor, right? Because we can't change our genetics, we can't change our luck. But if I have bad genetics and bad luck, which I do in my family, I can still keep my core muscles strong, try and make reasonable decisions, work out every day, eat a natural diet, so that I can try and counteract all these things, right? And if you look at all the different activities someone may do, whether you sleep on your side or your back or in a reclined position, is probably a lot less likely to predict if something bad's going to happen to your back down the road, compared to many of these other decisions we're making. So that's my plug. Like, how do I get out of pain? Well, the best solution, right, is to do everything possible not to get into pain, right? So I always want to encourage people, and when we're making some of these choices, particularly as it's about nicotine, vaping is the new killer. Like, nicotine kills little blood vessels, it causes strokes, it causes cancer, all these horrible things, but it also causes pain. It causes your body to wear out. And so if only every cigarette you smoked caused the pain you're eventually going to have from it at the time, we wouldn't do it, right? But the effects are further down the road. But making those choices now in terms of taking care of ourselves and being in shape so that we don't have those kind of problems, and then we're having to dig our way out of the hole with surgery or more complex treatments is really, really super valuable, especially if you know you've had an injury or you know there's a problem that everybody in your family has. Hey, like, let's say you feel fine, but everybody in your family who's older has had back surgery. Boy, I think you're somebody who really putting some time into some core and some back exercises has a lot of potential payoff for you.
I didn't know, Dr. Good. So if I guess nicotine or vaping can affect back pain?
It's the worst thing you can do. It is the worst. So these little blood vessels, they nourish everything in our bodies, right? And so when we ingest these substances, it kills those little blood vessels. And those little blood vessels nourish our brain. So when they go bad, what do we get? Strokes. They nourish our heart. So when those blood vessels get affected, what do we get? We get heart attacks, right? Well, those little blood vessels nourish our joints, our cartilage, our discs in our back. And those structures, our cartilage in our body, which is the cushion, it only wears out as the years go on. It doesn't have the ability to regenerate or reheal itself. And so if you're killing the little blood vessels that nourish your disc and you're wearing them out, you're causing these problems. And so it's probably the number one, like they call it a modifiable risk factor. The number one thing you could do tomorrow is get the nicotine out of your system. The more we can help people understand, like, everybody's okay, I might die of cancer one day. That's terrifying, but it's not like an immediate call to action for lots of my patients, right? If I can help them to understand, like, your knee is killing you, your back is killing you, you have these problems, and it is directly related to the smoking that you're doing. Getting off of that is going to help you feel better. All of a sudden, it's like, wow, that's an urgent, well, maybe I'm going to do this now.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. Is there any recommendations we can do to prevent any injury in the future?
Well, I think we know that if you're doing something that would be on the X Games, right, we need to be careful, right? We know certain things are high risk. Running a jackhammer, riding motorcycles, things that put tremendous stress on our body, powerlifting, right? Even with perfect form, these things put more stress on our body, right? So I'm not saying don't do the things you love. I do some things that put stress on my body, but make reasonable choices. Don't do things that are dumb, or don't go looking for trouble. But if you're going to do that, you need to put the time in, right? If I want to lift heavy, I need to work on my core. I need to do planks. I need to do Pilates. I need to be fit so that when I lift something heavy, my back is not the weak link, right? And so that's really where there's a whole area of really a kind of customized nutrition and exercise that we really need to get into, where people really need to say, okay, like, what are the problems that run in my family? What are the injuries I've had? Oh, I tore my MCL playing football, whatever. Like, what are the things that I know I'm at risk for down the road? And then if you really get into it, you can put in time specifically going after those areas that are either predicted issues for you or known weaknesses to help try and prevent or slow kind of the inevitable wear and tear that may come.
It's great. I try to work out often and eat healthy and be healthy and with fitness and everything. And besides stretching before you working out, I would do that. But then I would notice that just out and about in the house, or I'm grabbing something in the kitchen, I would just grab something. It's like, just out of nowhere, something in my back or something would just spasm. And then what I started doing is every morning when I wake up and also every night before hitting the bed, I would just do some basic stretching, trying to touch my toes, moving around. And I personally, that has helped tremendously, knock on wood, as far as me just grabbing something here or there in a house, that's no longer happening. And I tell my wife, I'm like, she has lower back problem. I'm like, I'm not going to say this is going to cure you, but stretching has helped me a lot. Besides the stretching before you're working out, but just every morning before, when I get out of bed, before I leave my bedroom, I stretch, and then before I hit the bed also at night.
I the more people learn about this, the more empowered they can be. The only downside to it is the more you learn, the more you realize how hard you could work, right? But like, the reality is, like, I wake up in the morning, I drink a massive glass of water as I work out, right? Hydration plays a huge role in our body, not only in terms of getting rid of toxins, but in terms of cushioning our joints. Hydration makes a huge difference. I choose to take some supplements that I think are good based on the problems that run in my family. I try and work out every single morning, the first thing that I do. Sometimes it's hard to motivate to do that. Absolutely. Am I ever sad that I did it once it's over? No. And that kickstarts my day. When you work out, you're delivering more oxygen to the tissues of your body, you release endorphins, you feel better, right? And so as you do that over time, it takes a while before it kind of becomes a maintaining thing. But like the more you do it, the better you feel. The more you realize how good it is to feel good, the more you want to protect feeling good. And so you try and avoid the things that make you feel bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that comes down to the inflammatory factors in the foods that we eat. You know, I mean, if anybody has ever really tried to go on a diet where you cut out pro-inflammatory foods, it's a challenging diet. But I got to tell you, like I do that for 4 or 6 weeks, like I feel like a different person, right? And not that we all have to be perfect every day, but if you start to understand there's so many layers to this, and there's so many things that we as patients can do for ourselves to understand our problems, you know, it can really be empowering. And it's not like every patient with back pain could just be fixed miraculously, right? We all have different problems, we got to figure it out. But there's a lot that patients have control of if they're willing to put in the time and learn, and you know, it's really worth it for people.
What are some pro-inflammatory foods?
Oh boy. uh Everything really. No. So now if you think about it, like so obviously there's a lot of attention right now to gluten. You know, there's some people who have real medical gluten allergies, but it's a pro-inflammatory food. Dairy, actually a lot of fruits and vegetables are healthy for you, but a lot of the fruits, especially ones with little small seeds, are really pro-inflammatory. I'll tell you just a quick story, but like it changed our life. My wife has suffered from migraine headaches her whole life. She's seen every doctor, had every test, tried medicines. And the thing that changed our lives, like she realized if she ate fancy cheeses, she would get a worse headache. And she had done diet journals and all this, and they never figured anything out. But a friend of ours convinced her to do this elimination diet where you eliminate every food that is pro inflammatory for 6 weeks. It is very hard. You're basically, I try and do it. I'm kind of doing it right now, but you try and eliminate. So you're eating like, you know, chicken and fish and yam and sweet potatoes and broccoli. It's very limited, some oils. But the point is, she did that for 6 weeks. And at the end of 6 weeks, her headaches, her lifelong headaches were like 85% better. And we were astounded. And then the philosophy is, okay, now you know how good you could feel. You introduce one class of food at a time to see which ones are your individual triggers, because we're all different.
Sure.
And through that process, she was actually able to identify for her what in just trace amounts what was making her headaches over the years. And it's like been, you know, a life-changing thing for us to go through that. And so whenever I see patients who are really having hard troubles, they're going to Johns Hopkins and all these doctors, and Dr. House can't figure out what's wrong with me, that's the first thing I do is I have them do this elimination diet. And it's amazing how many people figure out that alcohol or sugar or some artificial thing is their trigger, and they have all these symptoms no doctors can figure out. So there's a I think a future out there that we're just beginning to understand when it comes to these dietary triggers and inflammatory foods.
What was her trigger? Was it dairy?
Dairy.
Ah,
Like an M&M, or somebody butters the bread before they toast it. That's it. And so the problem is, if you are triggered by a trace amount of something, eating less of it doesn't do you any good. You've got to eliminate it, right?
yeah.
And if you cheat on the elimination diet, even one blip, you might be messing up the results. So I always tell people you got to be in like all the way. But it's really amazing. And what I would say is, like, I'm not trying to get everybody to live like a monastic lifestyle, but the reality is, like, once you do that and you see how you feel, you start to say, okay, I maybe don't want to do that every day, but the more of my time I spend eating these natural, whole, less inflammatory foods, and the less choices I make to be after these bad things, in general, the better I feel, right? We don't always have to be 100% on or off. We shift the balance in our favor, and it can make a really big difference in terms of how you feel every day.
It's so true. I haven't eliminated dairy, but I used to take dairy all the time, but now it's plant-based. Maybe when I do ice cream here and there, but I feel a total difference. Like I feel less heavy. Even I would barely drink milk, but I would always do dairy, but now it's just plant-based if I do consume any dairy type of liquid.
I got to tell you, like, do it for 6 weeks. Even if you feel, I got to tell you, the first time I did it was honestly in solidarity with my wife. I thought I feel pretty good. Well,
Yeah.
I got to tell you, like at the end of that 6 weeks, I was like, wow, like there's just less of the little stuff that you start to feel as you go from
Hmm.
being 20 to 30 to 40 and beyond, right? And
Yeah.
so it's just an example of the fact that we actually have more control as patients of the things that we're experiencing than we might think. It's
That,
empowering.
yeah. You have such a rich medical career, Dr. Good. What would you say you're most proud of thus far in your career?
Oof. Well, I would say I've been in this role a little over 2 years in terms of taking over leadership of Virginia Spine, and I'd say that's certainly the top. Prior to that, I think medically, one thing that I'm just super proud with is very early on, I got involved with a lot of technology. I really see technologies everywhere, but I see technology in medicine and in surgery as a way that we can improve success for patients. We can help doctors make better decisions. And if you look at anything, whether it's accounting, doctors, you name it, there's a spectrum of talent, ability, you know, and I think that using technology can really help to elevate everybody. And so we started working with robotics and spine surgery back in 2012, and we're one of the first robotic spine surgery places in the country, and have really evolved, developed robotics, and it's been cool. I've gotten to work with engineers and doctors and patients and business people to build these systems, and really amazing studies showing that when we use this type of technology, we're able to make surgery safer for patients, better outcomes. And as part of that, I've gotten to do some of the first, surgeries in the world with different systems. And so it's just been a really fulfilling, enriching part of my career, not only in terms of helping me be a better surgeon, but helping to do things that I think have a national and eventually global impact, and will help patients and surgeons that I've never met, as these things go big. And so that technology side has been really something I've been super proud of over the years.
That's great. You just mentioned a few years ago, you came into this leadership role with the practice. How does your day consist of? Because I know you still do surgeries and now with also now running the business, how do you divide and conquer?
Well, I am blessed with a tremendous team around me that has been built over many years, right? And is I don't take credit for, but that is what allows me to still focus on patient care, because when I'm in surgery, that's all I'm about, right? I'm not distracted. But having a team of people around who've been here and having an organization with tremendous culture, allows a lot of those things to continue to run. It allows me to, maybe not be here minute by minute. Now, that being said, I do put in a lot of time, in my, leadership role, and I try very hard to make up for lost time. I definitely work some hours and work some weekends and stuff to be able to keep up. But you can't, in any organization, right? No successful organization exists because of one person at any level, right? A successful organization is a result of many different people working together at many different levels, and I'm so thankful for that. It's really one of my number one priorities, is maintaining and even growing further what we have there, because when patients come to see us, that's what I love to hear. I can't believe it, everybody on your team, I've never been treated like this, so detail oriented. It doesn't matter what your business is, right? It doesn't matter what you're doing to help people or what you're selling. You hear that about your business, you're doing something great, you're proud, you're going to be successful.
Do you try to block off certain times, doctors? This time is only for surgery or seeing patients, or this time I'm only focusing on the business and looking at numbers or leadership activities, or is it just as you go?
Well, I do block some time that is meant for administrative time. It's not fair for my team to only interact with me at night, right? These people are, and so But I'm still, I'm taking care of lots of patients, and I'm not at the point where I'm interested in not taking care of patients to go on the business side only.
Mhm.
And so it is a bit of a challenge. But yeah, I try and block some time. I usually utilize every minute that I get, if surgeries cancel or weekends or nights, and we're able to make it work. And I'll need to shift that balance. I'm not sure that balance is the right word, but I'll need to shift that more and more as the years go on. And I think that's going to be a good thing for me.
You just mentioned your team here and the importance of having right team members. How do you go about finding the right people and putting them in the right seat in the bus per se?
Yeah, that is a great question. Luckily, if you have a great team and a great culture, right? You bring someone new on and they're assimilated into that, and it's self-perpetuating. And so we have always had that. And so that again, I think I've been a part of that, being here for 16 years. I've been helpful and instrumental, but certainly do not take the credit. But as I look at it now, I look at this and say, everybody we bring on, we want to make sure that it's the right kind of person. They're going to have the right kind of customer service mentality, empathy, caring, and we really look at that. But the good news is, even if it's not somebody I'm going to be directly working with or training, I know the team of people I'm going to put them in with has has already got a great culture. And boy, when you get in with a great organization, it's easy to excel. And conversely, you put a great person in a bad system, most of the time they won't do well, right? And so thankfully we're more in maintain mode, but really trying to focus on that is just a huge priority.
That's great. All of our career, most of us have setbacks, failures, you can call them. Is there any specific setback that you can think of and that you've had? And if so, how did it affect you? How'd you work around it?
Well, I mean, I think obviously, I'm a surgeon. The first thing I go to is the medical side, right? Like we do take care of people who have sometimes very challenging problems. Sometimes we take care of people with problems that can't be fixed, right? And so those are the situations where I my mind immediately goes, in terms of the setbacks and everything. There's no question, if smooth seas don't make good sailors, right? So I think if you look at how we've evolved over the years, insurance has changed, right? The entire way the administrative burden that goes along with medical practice has changed. The different types of treatments we think are a good idea for patients have changed. Research has changed, and so with each of those, there's this struggle, right? But we have to continue to push through that, and honestly, we've been able to do that, thankfully, very, very successfully. But there are times when it's scary, right? You're like, wow, we were fully, kind of your kind of average kind of medical practice in terms of the way we dealt with insurance some years ago, and the reality is we were so busy, we were booked out 6 months, right? And if you're booked out 6 months, you're not helping anybody, right? You're running around chicken with your head cut off. Patients are waiting too long. Nobody's happy, right? And so we made really my founder made a tremendously like hard decision to kind of rethink how we were going to do that so that we could take better care of people and see the right number of people, and that, to think of changing your business model to see less patients, like that's a scary thing to do, right?
Mhm.
There's a real risk to doing that, and ultimately I think for the patients that we take care of and for those of us who are able to work here under these conditions, thank God we did. But there's definitely some scary times, and it's, lots of times that these tremendous business leaders who are marquee examples out there, right? They're always the one who went one way while everybody else was going the other way, or who had the vision, or who had the fortitude to make some of those decisions. And a lot of times you make a decision, a good decision, a bad decision. I think a lot of times if you stick with it and you just keep working, you can make a lot of your decisions end up working out pretty good, right? There's a lot of things I'd go back and say, well, I would do that differently, but that's what I did, and we worked at it, and we overcame it, and we made it a success. Not quite like we planned, but I think that's a big part of it. This is a business discussion. As CEOs, entrepreneurs, I think I think that's the big message, right? If it were easy, everybody would have done it. And I don't think anybody who reaches a tremendous level of success or leadership, looks back and says, well, that went exactly like I planned it, right? And I didn't have any failures along the way. I didn't have to rethink things, right? And I think that's part of the process.
So are people now when they call in and make an appointment, do they still have to wait 6 months or something like
No,
that?
no, no,
Okay.
no. I mean, our goal is to have people to be seen, in a day or two. At least, we have 9 doctors here, and we have a big team. And our goal is to be able to take that kind of care of people, because the reality is spine problems can be disabling. And patients who get a pinched nerve and nerve damage, numbness, weakness, sometimes these are very time sensitive things where if we don't react quickly, we might not get a successful treatment for someone. And so our goal is to be able to, see people quickly, see people back quickly. And if you look at what it takes in the medical field nowadays, I order a test. It takes me 2 seconds to write the prescription. It takes 20, 30, 60 minutes on the phone with an insurance company, getting authorization, fighting through that process, right? And that's why I think a lot of people go to their doctor and then ultimately they don't get a lot of stuff done. They get frustrated, things are denied. You have to have the time and the staff on the back end to fight through all these things. That didn't exist 15 years ago, but that is part of what we're really trying to do. So I couldn't get an MRI, my doctor couldn't get it, my PCP, whatever. It's been 6 weeks I've been waiting. Our goal is to be the people who are there. We advocate and we can make things happen to get people what they need and what they deserve.
It just made me think, Dr. Good. We just recently went with my youngest son to go see a specialist, and we had to wait several months to finally see the doctor. How did you go and compress it from 6 months to just a couple of days? What did you do?
Well, I mean, if you look at it, we were, in network with all the insurance companies, right? Which is ideal, because then that means most patients' care is just covered. But the reality is, more and more and more of the treatments that I believe are best for people, or I want to be able to talk to them about, are not allowed or authorized by different insurance companies in different ways, right? And so we've changed our model. We still deal with insurance companies all the time, and we have some that we're in with, but some that we're in like an out of network model, which allows us to say, okay, like for one example, like the things we talked about with regenerative medicine, or those things that I think are very promising. The majority of that is not something that has gotten to the point where it has coverage for a lot of insurance plans, or different surgical procedures that I believe strongly are best and have the most data to support them, but they haven't quite gotten adoption yet, right? And so when you're in a contract and you're kind of committed, that's the kind of care I'm going to get, because that's what I'm allowed to get, and I can't go outside of it. you know you're much more limited in what you can do. Whereas if you really are able to say to someone, all right, here's the different options, here's what medically I think the options are, we might try this, we might try that, this could be authorized, this might not. It's different. It's time consuming to figure out for any given patient what they may or may not be able to get. But I think that people now, they're on the internet, they're becoming very educated about their medical problems. They understand there's different treatment options, they want to be educated, and there's a real value for people to being able to fully understand all these options. And so moving into this model has allowed us to be much more patient focused and a lot more independent. And I think, especially for people who've had care, it's not been going well, they haven't been able to get answers. Doctors are under a lot of pressure, great people, but they're time pressure. I got 5 minutes from the doctor, didn't have time to answer my questions, whatever. Like, there's a lot of people that need a little something more. And so, we want to be able to fill in that gap for people.
Yeah, I have clients in the medical practice, and every time I see them, it's always complaining about medical insurance and other issues like that. So I definitely understand.
I mean, you have some people who might want to make some financial investment, right? And the reality is, what they have and what they need is pretty simple, and a quick AI tool or a whatever. They're happy to just get it done very, very quickly, right? And then you have other people who might have some really complicated financial situation, and they need someone who's thinking about it, who's an expert, who's counseling them and helping them put in lots and lots of time on their problem, right? Those might be two different financial advisors or two different businesses you need to serve those two different people, right? It's not a one size fits all situation at all, and it's really the same kind of thing as we're looking at medical care, especially kind of more specialized medical care.
Yeah. Do you have any specific habits or traits, doctor, you feel that have helped you, for work, for business, or even just maybe just on the personal side of things?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I've been a relatively driven person. I remember going through med school, and there were lots of smart people there, right? And all of a sudden, you are not the big fish in the pond, right? And I remember wanting to go into orthopedics, and especially at the highest level, it was the most competitive thing in all of medicine to get into. And kind of at my med school, they were like, yeah, I'm not sure that's like happens to many people. And so I remember the day when I started getting up at 3:45 in the morning, and I would go in and I would study the day's lessons before the class happened. And then I'd go to class and I learned so much more during class because I just studied it. And then after class, I'd do a refresher, right? And I developed this very, very, hardcore but hard work mentality that led for me to have great academic success and ultimately get into these competitive positions and get the best training out there. And so I think that's something I remember, like the day I made the conscious choice, because my buddy was like a genius, and he'd been an Army Ranger, and he was very smart, and he'd already taken biochemistry, and he was crushing me in biochemistry in medical school. And I was like, oh boy, like everybody else has got, and so, my wife has kind of a similar kind of set of stories, and we've tried to look at that, and we tried to kind of help figure out for our kids, how do you teach them that? How do you instill like hard work, understanding that hard work leads to some kind of success? How do you understand setting small goals to achieve a big goal? How do there's a lot of studies out there, right? People who set goals and write them down and communicate them are much more likely to achieve those goals than if they don't set them or if they don't communicate them, right? And so in our family, we've put together this whole process. We have 5 people in our family, and our name is Good, so we call it G5, which is the Good Family Initiative for Vision and Excellence. And a number of my buddies who run companies and things have been a part of helping us do this, but it involves like goal setting, getting up in the morning, working hard, some exercise, a little meditation, things that we're trying to do that get you in the right mindset for the day, get your body and get your mind ready. The more I look at, human performance, you look at high level athletes, F1, you look at fighter pilots, right? They like, and I think surgeons should consider themselves falling into that same category, right? If I'm having surgery, man, I want you at your best that day. There's so many things that go into that mentally and physically, health-wise, sleep. So I've really started to try and really focus in on these things and just focus on like trying to be my best performance mentally and physically every day. And hopefully my kids take some piece of that. And when it's time for them to pony up in whatever way they need to, there's some foundation that they've taken from that helps them moving forward.
I have to ask, I have 3 children myself. So what is some of the plan that you make them do?
Well, I try not to use the word make, although there's
Okay.
certainly, I think it is fair to say dad is maybe, and mom, the primary motivators.
Okay.
So it has to evolve over time, because if it's something that is not fun and becomes resented, then it all goes away. That's a lesson I've learned, and I've been through that, right? So our initial goal was, I get up really early, I exercise, and then when we get up with the kids, everybody gets ready, we try and get together and we try and do a brief like little journal session, write out a little gratitude. I think that's very, very interesting. It seems that people who are like talking about what they're thankful for are more happy in life. Maybe a brief meditation. I will admit I have a lot of trouble with meditation myself. I like some breathing exercises, but we're talking like 15, 20 minutes. And then the goal is and as part of the journaling, we're trying to write some goals. If you want to be a professional whatever down the road, if I want to be a firefighter, what should I do today and in 3 months and a year so that I can become a firefighter, whatever. And then we do try and have a little bit of physical activity in there so that you get your body going, you get a little endorphins going before the day. And when it works great, you hit school and your brain is on, your body is on, and you're all that more, kind of set up for whatever you need to do to be successful that day. And I definitely, and on days if I have something really important or a really delicate surgery or whatever, like I'm even more dialed in and like kind of regimented about my own personal steps that I go through. And I find it's really, really helpful.
I love that. So everything takes about 15, 20 minutes, you say?
So no, 15 or 20 minutes, we would do our journal, our gratitude, and a very brief meditation. And
Okay.
then depending on how much time is left, 15 to 30 minutes, ideally some kind of exercise. And
Okay.
so that might be me upstairs, like with the kids on the tonal doing like a jump around, you know, thing. It may be everybody throwing their, I built out in the basement this lacrosse bounce back. All three of my kids are currently like interested in that. So it
Okay.
might be them down there bouncing the ball for 15 minutes working on stick skills. I kind of don't care. Certainly that's not enough time to become a pro athlete. It's just more of a matter of like get your mind going, get your body going. Let's start the day, right? And understand that if I do a little bit of this every day in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, like I don't know how to play the piano right now. If that was my goal, I know how to set the goals now to be able to play the piano in some way down the road. And that's the goal I'm trying to teach them is how to understand this process.
I love that. I might have to use some of that myself on my
How it
children.
depends how old your kids are. I got to tell you, starting around 15 years old, the hey, it's 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning, let's go, does become my son's a champion, but boy, it does become a challenge. And they get so busy, as they're high school and it's there's a lot going on, obviously.
Yeah, I have three boys. My oldest just turned 13. Then I have a 10-year-old and then an 8-year-old.
That's prime time. I mean, that's
Yeah.
so I have twins. So that's, we started when the twins were, kind of 10, 11,
Okay.
with kid meditation, little simple stuff. Right.
Yeah.
But, what's amazing though, is if you have something like this going on, most important thing it set the tone that we're all together for a little while in a protected time, which is so hard in these lives. Right. I remember like the best day, like two of the best days. Like one day my son was like, Dad, right when we were supposed to be journaling, Dad, like, is it okay to set a goal to not do drugs? Is that a goal? And I'm like, whoa, like, how awesome is this? Let's talk about drugs. Let's talk about the fentanyl crisis, right? Or, do things come up with kids of bullying or whatever? Like, if you have that kind of thing where you're doing this and you're having that time with them, then when the stuff like that comes up, you're there, you're talking about it. So the best days we had were the days the whole plan went out the window. We didn't do any of it because one of these things came up, but it came up because we were there and it came up because we were doing it.
Yeah. That's great. Coming to an end here soon, Dr. Good. What would you say is your biggest challenge with your role today at VSI?
I would say my biggest challenge is time.
Hmm.
I really want to take great care of people. I don't want to sacrifice that, and yet I want to make sure that I'm taking care of the people that work here and protecting us for the future. And there's no question, healthcare has changed. It is continuing to change, and so trying to read the tea leaves and make sure that we continue to be in a position that whatever's going on out there, we're in the best position possible to keep doing what we think is special and keep really being able to offer patients what we think is absolutely the best kind of care that we can. And we know it'll change a couple more times probably during my career. So we just have to be nimble and be ready to face those challenges.
That's great. What does the next 5 years look like for you in VSI? What are you most excited about?
I think that we are not going to see, God willing, I don't think that the major upheaval is going to happen in that time period, right? So I think right now we have like a tremendous practice, and what I really want to do now, with the new, we've done a rebrand, going to the name VSI. We've come up with new logos. We're really trying to build a massive like social media presence. So if you look at the V over my shoulder, that's our victory symbol. And so the idea is, when patients are able to overcome, we're trying to help our patients set goals, right? So if a patient is miserable and they have a goal to get to their kid's graduation or go on vacation again, and we're able to help them overcome their problem and achieve that goal, that's a tremendous celebration, right? And not only are we helping them achieve that, but we're helping, like, if you set goals and you achieve them, it's very fulfilling. And then if we share those on social media, there's just a big community. Our goal is to really be building, this kind of kind of a victory culture of let's work together. Let's identify what we can do to overcome. Let's celebrate these things we're able to do, right? I may never be able to climb Mount Everest, right? But if I have other goals and I'm able to achieve them and celebrate them, that makes maybe the fact that I couldn't achieve the pinnacle a little bit more palatable, right? And so I
Yeah.
think that for us is really the next 5 years is maintaining and continuing to organically build what is already really a great thing, and protecting our ability to take care of patients the way we want.
Nice. When you're not busy working, what do you like to do for fun in your free time?
Oh boy, I love the outdoors. I love hiking, camping, in anything outdoors, especially if we can get the family involved. And so, if you said here's a weekend, you're not allowed to work at all, what would you do for 3 or 4 days? I we'd be in Colorado or in Idaho up in the back country. We don't get to do that very often, but that's my special Zen place.
And is it just being outdoor hiking, or is it doing, I don't know, doing something, surfing, or I don't know?
Yeah, I love, and this goes back to bad decisions. I don't know. The men in my family like to fall off of things of elevation. I've managed to not do it, but many other men in my family have. But I love like the backcountry and hiking to high places, seeing these views that are so hard to achieve. And when you get there and you see these beautiful mountain ranges or a lake, not only is it beautiful, but the fact that you work so hard to get there makes it 10 times more
Hmm.
more beautiful, right? And one of my good friends, he's always in the back country, and his one of his sayings is, whenever he cooks dinner and it tastes so beautiful up in the back country, is that altitude is the best seasoning, right? Because the harder you work to get into the environment, the more enriching it is. And so I've always loved that. And honestly, part of that goes back to my dad, and he was a backcountry guy, and because of his injury he couldn't do it. And so I think that's why I've always gravitated toward that. He and I didn't get to do that together, but I know we would have. And so that's probably my like root motivation there. But I certainly do love it.
That's great. Dr. Good, if people want to learn more about you and VSI and what you're doing there, where can they go to, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is spinemd.com. MD is in doctor. And so come on, you can learn about the organization, the different treatments that we offer. Certainly, we've talked about a lot of different things today, but I think for people, neck pain, back pain, non-operative orthopedic issues, neurologic problems, really, really high level like physical therapy, exercise, all these kind of things. We really love to be able to communicate with our DMV people, and love to hear from you.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, Doctor.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Pleasure's all
All
mine.
right.
Take
Take
care.
care. Bye-bye.